I should be like you, Mel.
Ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are situated in the world. Welcome back to the Up the Cherries transfer show. And with literally a couple of days to go, things are heating up. Now, do hit like, hit subscribe, hit the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. And also do check out our two sponsors, Dental on the Banks at dentalonthebanks.co.uk. You saw them just then. And also Touchpoint Telecoms at touchpointtelecoms.co.uk. Get in contact with Mark and the team for all your business telecoms needs. But it wouldn't be the transfer show if I didn't have my main man next to me, Mr. Manny Thangaderi, the man, the legend, the knowledge. How you doing, mate?
I'm no legend, but thank you very much for that introduction. I am all good, mate. And I am just, the thing about this is that obviously I did say that the closer we get to the window, perhaps the more activity there would be, the more frenetic it would be. And it's like that level of desperation. You just wonder, are these deals going to happen or aren't they? And certainly, there's a lot of news coming out of some deals that might happen, might not happen, and some that maybe should have happened. And we've got a lot to say about them, don't we?
We certainly do. We certainly do. And just something a little bit different tonight as well. I will go over this a couple of times because towards the end, we will discuss it. But Cherries fans, please, please, please put in the comments where you think AFC Bournemouth need to strengthen. Is it another winger that needs to come in? Is it a centre-back? Do we need somebody up front? You tell us. If there's one position we could strengthen, tell us in the comments where that would be. But, we'll save that towards the end. Let's get stuck in to our first piece. And it's not a transfer, believe it or not, but it's actually linked to the spending. And Premier League clubs are set to hit £300 million worth of spending. And there's still 3 days to go in the transfer window. Manny, it's not a record in January, but it's a hell of a lot in January. Firstly, that could well be beaten tonight, that £300 million mark, whilst we're on air. But it could well be as much as 500 million. Has spending got a little bit out of control during this window, do you think?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you would think out of control would be. For me, it's effectively a case of the clubs with a big chance of winning trophies this season, doing what they have to do to increase their chances. Other clubs selling before they can buy and then buying what they would need and trying to be as frugal as they can. You get the whole lot. And certainly with the spending as well, I'm not too sure that takes into consideration the net spend, which will be affected obviously by player outgoings and money raised. Obviously, focus will be on Manchester City, and I think we might possibly be dealing with that later on. But they've also had to let go of quite a few players as well. Every single club is going to have to do whatever they can to try to balance the books and make sure that they are able to get what they need and just stay within that range. Obviously, some clubs have been able to get away with it more than others. But, we can't sit around here complaining about the unfairness of it all, can we?
No, most definitely not. And do you know what? It doesn't actually surprise me. With regards to the figure, I know that we say, I asked a question about getting out of control, but you look at the challenge for the title. Of course, there is yourself, Arsenal, Manchester City, and Aston Villa. Those are the three teams that you would expect one of those to win the Premier League, unless there is a massive drop off from all three and somebody else gets in. You would expect it to be one of those three. So, of course, there's always going to be spending there. But then you look from fourth all the way down to Crystal Palace in 15th. There is a 10-point gap between Palace in 15th, who have been on a pretty dire run, to be fair, and are the least informed team, I believe, in the Premier League as it stands at the moment. I think only Burnley are as bad. Actually, I don't think Burnley are as bad, just looking at this. Palace are the, worst team in form table at the moment. But all the way to Manchester United, a couple of wins and a team could well get themselves into a position where they could get a Europa Conference League place or a Europa League place, or even better, a Champions League place. There's all to play for about 11 teams in the league, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. And, people are going to have this sort of an attitude that the standard of the league has gone down a bit this season. And that may be the main reason why Arsenal might still somehow, just get over the line. But I think we also have to give credit to some other teams as well, rather than simply focusing on the inconsistency of those teams at the top. I think a lot of other teams this season are really proving that they deserve to be where they are. You take a look at the likes of Brentford and Sunderland. I know that here on Up the Cherries in all departments, many of us predicted that Brentford would struggle, but Keith Andrews has literally made us eat humble pie. And yes, I will say right now that these predictions didn't exactly endear you to quite a few Brentford fans, and you thought Nottingham Forest fans would be unhappy with you. But, Forest fans, of course, will not have reason to want to snap back at us just yet because their team is still not technically out of the woods. And you take a look at Sunderland and how they've played. There is a caveat, though, that now their form isn't exactly the best. They have a pretty poor away record, it has to be said. Mm-hmm. And again, sadly, we're seeing a case of teams that have come up not really doing very much. I mean, Leeds United somehow were in a bad run of form, but they've also managed to recover. So now I think you see that a lot of teams are trying to get to grips with doing what they have to do and trying to make sure they do what they can. And through a combination of, their own grit and their hard work and some good fortune, they happen to be doing a lot better than expected. So that's what makes this probably a little bit more exciting. And I wouldn't say the standard has gone and the league has gone down at all. If any standards have gone down, it's really the standard of European club football, which is why you see a large number of the European powerhouses not doing too well in the Champions League. But this league stage, what we're in now, Craig, is a very exciting period. And it's around about this period after Christmas and the New Year where you see a lot of fluctuations in form. You're going to start seeing teams, you're going to see teams start to establish themselves a lot more. And there are so many, plot holes and so many plot lines and storylines or what have you. And that's what makes it what it is right now.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And you've mentioned Brentford there. Keith Andrews done a fantastic job. I just want to throw out a couple of other managers that have done a really, really good job. And we'll come to, one of the new signings for Fulham. But Fulham have been going very quietly about their business, as they always do. Marco Silva has got things working there. And, they are literally 4 points of Manchester United in that Champions League spot. A point back from them, Everton. To be honest, Everton are not an attractive side to watch. I think Everton fans would probably, agree with me and, wouldn't mind me saying that. But they seem to get the job done. They are a bit of a frustrating team to play against because when they come down to Dean Court, they weren't particularly very good, but they got the job done. And that's what David Moyes seems to be doing. There's a lot of teams. Liverpool, you would have expected to be a little bit better, but no doubt they will look to spend a lot more in the summer after this season is done. But Manchester United, no doubt, Michael Carrick and the powers will be there. Will be looking potentially to add some more players to their roster, and it's a real exciting division. I think the Premier League as a whole has just improved, and English clubs are getting the cream of the crop in terms of players. Yes, Real Madrid, Barcelona are still seen as powerhouses, but you look at these up and coming players from outside, of the British Isles as well. A lot of them are being attracted to clubs just like ourselves. And it's because of the competitive nature of this division.
Absolutely. And we're certainly going to find out a little bit more about these things in detail. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the agenda is for tonight. But these stories, mind you, could actually, influence what happens in the upcoming games between now and the end of the season. And we're going to find out more, definitely.
Well, I tell you what, let's talk about one player who is a youngster, has joined AFC Bournemouth, and also a fairly young goalkeeper as well, who has joined the club and will definitely be putting Jordi Petrovic under pressure. And that is Brazilian Rayan and, of course, goalkeeper Christos Mandas. Now, I've had my say about Rayan and, his skill, how exciting he is. But what do you make of the acquisition of both of these players?
I've said everything I want to say about Rayan, Craig. I think it's definitely a terrific move for both the club and the player. I think long-term he could very well prove to be the replacement for Antoine Semenyo. And I think his skill will definitely, be a big asset. The only question I have is how he's going to be used. And it is quite clear that you do have a little bit of a problem in that right-wing position. Obviously, Semenyo's left, and I think you played Alex Jimenez in that position against Liverpool. Is David Brooks injured, by the way?
Yes.
That explains it. Yeah. So again, it will be very interesting to see if Rayan does get any game time between now and the end of the season. I only hope it won't necessarily be too soon. And then next season, obviously, with everyone back fit, I think he will relish the competition with some of the players who would normally play in that position, and he can learn a great deal from them. And with Evan Nilsson there, that's one Brazilian who will, help him get adapted to the city, the culture, the lifestyle quite effectively. I only hope he enjoys the food. And that's, of course, another reason why another youngster named Alisson was signed for Aston Villa. He is, of course, now injured, but Unai Emery has made it crystal clear that he hopes that the player will get back to fitness very soon. And having acquired an old boy, Douglas Luiz, on loan, also Brazilian.
Yeah. You
kind of see where the reasoning is. And I just wonder if, in Andoni Areola, you have someone who reminds you in a way of Unai Emery. Maybe not so much so because Unai Emery is now a little bit more evolved as the manager. He's a lot more, risk tolerant, we would say. Certainly willing to try to make things happen, as we saw in the Europa League tie against RB Salzburg, where Aston Villa went 2-0 down. But he still, had faith in the team to make sure they got the result, and even threw on some youngsters. And it was those two youngsters who combined for the Aston Villa winner. So it could very well be that we're seeing the very best of the Basque attacking philosophy, if only another Basque guy who happens to manage my club would learn from them. So I'm quite pleased with the acquisition of Rayan. I think he'll do well. As far as Mandas is concerned, I did watch one of your videos, Craig, where you said that he has now pretty much become Greece's number one goalkeeper. I'm not too sure. They do have two other goalkeepers in the ex-Newcastle goalkeeper Vlachodimos, who's already earned 50 caps, and Salakis obviously is playing with Olympiacos in the in Europe as well as the Greek league. Mandas, I think, might have been given the chance to impress, and he is still a part of the squad, and he does seem to have a fairly high ceiling. I was always wondering, though, why you'd want to get another goalkeeper with Fraser Forster having been acquired. And I think what you said in that video, rather, was that Forster would end up playing a role as someone who'd be a more experienced backup who wouldn't necessarily compete for the number one jersey, but he'd provide a lot of competition and be more of a coach or a mentor to Petrovic and Mandas in that respect. So maybe this is a case of future planning, because we don't know how many years Fraser has left in the game. I don't know. But it's clear that this is another youth acquisition, and I think it could very well be that Mandas becomes second choice and gives Petrovic more competition, while Fraser settles into more of a Darren Randolph-style role like he had at Bournemouth. And I'm not necessarily sure that Fraser would be happy with that. I don't know how long he has at Bournemouth, but if he's okay with that, if he feels as though, that's what he'd like at this stage in his career, then, it doesn't necessarily sit right with me, but good luck to him. But two decent acquisitions, and I think next season, if Mandas ends up, staying, he will definitely play in some cup games like the League Cup or what have you, and he'll get some opportunities for sure.
It's quite an interesting signing, Mandas, for me, because I honestly thought that Fraser Forster would be the backup to Jordi Petrovic, that he would put Jordi Petrovic under pressure to make sure that he didn't make any mistakes. Of course, Mandas has come in, so I can imagine I can only imagine that Mandas is going to be that person who is going to be that backup, who's going to be waiting in the wings. The thing is with Fraser Forster is one of his real strengths is that he's rarely beaten at the near post, which is probably Jordi Petrovic's weakness, is that Jordi Petrovic does get beaten at that near post. He doesn't seem to have that covered. He's a great shot stopper, when a shot coming from, quite some distance against Spurs. I think it was Mickey van der Ven. Maybe Matt can correct me on that, but I think it was Mickey van der Ven had a really, really good shot that Jordi Petrovic tapped over the crossbar, in some style. Had that gone in, it could have been a whole different result. He can do that part, but it's at near range where he seems to struggle. And I'm hoping that Fraser Forster can pass on his experience, his knowledge, his approach to both Petrovic and, of course, Mandas, to help them in the game. But I'd like to see Fraser Forster play for a game for AFC Bournemouth. He's only here till the end of the season, but I would not be surprised if we sign him on for a little bit longer. If he might not get any game time, but if his knowledge, he's passing that on, and we see a significant improvement in these players, he'll be worth his weight in gold. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Very, very interesting signing that. But I just want to say hello to James, who said evening. Good evening, James. I hope you are doing well. Um, Manny, I want your thoughts on this in a second, but I'm going to make it full screen. So just bear with me, just so I can read it properly. Because Andoni Iraola has said we need to be careful with Rayan. So Bournemouth head coach Andoni Iraola feels the club need to be careful with new signing Rayan as he contemplates handing the 19-year-old a swift Premier League debut. The Brazilian joined the Cherries earlier on this week on a 5.5-year contract after scoring 20 goals in 57 appearances across all competitions for Vasco da Gama. The Bournemouth boss, though, knows he cannot expect too much too soon from Rayan as he prepares the squad for Saturday's trip to bottom club Wolves. Physically, he is fine. He is trained to normal, but we also have to be careful with him, Iriola told a press conference. In the sense that he is 19, he is going to be making a big jump, a big change to a different country, and I want him to be confident. It's going to be difficult because he still doesn't know a lot of things about us, and we are trying to give him more information. But physically, there is no issues with him, and he is ready. Manny, wise words from Andoni Iraola there. Um, do we just throw this man into the deep end?
No, you don't. He's taken the words out of my mouth. And obviously, you can't start him in a big game like against Wolves, as dire as they are right now. You obviously want to, blood him in slowly and just make sure that he gets to grips with everything. And that is the way to go. And that is very much the Unai Emery way, even though Unai Emery also is very big on promoting youth, as we've seen in recent games. Although it is fair to say that given the lengthy list of injuries that they have, he's now compelled to try to play either a few youngsters or even some people who haven't really played very much and have come in from the cold, and he's still sweating on the fitness of certain players who've been out injured who might be coming back soon. But, that is the way to go. Definitely the way to go. I think in the short term, we will probably see Alex Jimenez continuing in that right wing role with Adam Smith coming in at right back. And I think in many ways that proved to be a quite inspired decision in some respects, because Jimenez had Milos Kerkez off balance during that game, and I'm sure if you saw that game, you would definitely agree. It won't necessarily be a long-term thing, but I think Rayan will be blooded in very slowly. So, yeah, that's great sense in every single way, and at least he's focusing more on the player's overall development rather than simply playing him for the sake of it and then just not wanting to hear from him again. You want to, if you're a youngster, you want to play under such a manager. Well done.
Yeah, agree completely. For our lineup for Wolves, we have put him in there though, because we were trying to think of who else actually fits that role. Of course, Marcus Tavernier is also injured out at the moment. When he is back, the good thing with Ryan, it enables him to move more into a central position, Marcus Tavernier, or be put over the opposite side. Of course, Semenyo lists now. But we cannot expect him to play the full game. Are we just being a little bit hopeful that this guy is going to come straight into an English team and just take it by storm? He's probably going to need a couple of weeks, isn't he, to get up and running, in all fairness. Maybe we've jumped the gun a little.
I wouldn't say you've jumped the gun. If anything, probably quite a few of you will know that, yes, he does bring with him a great deal of skill. He brings a wonderful package, but you can't expect him to really just hit the ground running, and Andoni's pretty much nailed it. But one of the things which I love about the Bournemouth fan base, Craig, and I'm not simply saying this because I'm on a Bournemouth fan channel, is that the majority of you lot are very sensible and you understand that it can't just happen overnight. I think Andoni will pick his moments and choose to play him, give him a run out. And there'll be some moments when he'll need to be rested. And respectfully, for a game against Wolves, not only is it too soon, but I really don't think you need to. And if a if a right back could go into the right wing and do as well as Alex Jimenez did and get a win over the defending champions Liverpool, should you really be worried about playing a 19-year-old so quickly against Wolves? I don't think so. There'll be opportunities between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, very, very true. Very, very true. But yeah, he's going to take a little bit of adapting, but I'm sure he will get there. He's a real good prospect. We're not going to talk about Luis Enrique or Ian Sababre tonight, because we have spoken about them. But if you do want to find out a little bit more about them, listen to last week's show. And also listen to the video that I also did as well, where we had a little look into it. And I am trying to also get a pundit on for both of them as well, just so we can find out a little bit more. But of course, running out of time because the window closes pretty soon. So yes, I better do that sharpish because otherwise there's probably no point until the summer. But I tell you what, let's talk about a man that is on the move. Somebody who is vastly experienced. I couldn't believe it the other day, earlier on actually, that Matt said he's actually 31 years old now. But that is Raheem Sterling. He's looking to rebuild his career after his Chelsea departure. Do you know what? When he went to Chelsea, Manny, I just sometimes, when a player joins a certain club and you just think it's not going to work. In all honesty, I never thought that Raheem Sterling going to Chelsea would work. I could see Raheem Sterling going somewhere else and it working, but I don't know. I don't know. I just don't think he's been as successful there as he could well have been. But your thoughts? Where do you think? Do you think he has to leave the Premier League to find his best, or where does he go to?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's something that concerns me because last season we had this bloke on loan, and it was hopeful that. Yep, it was hope. The hope was that Arteta would somehow get the best out of him once again, but we just weren't able to do so. I think it's fair to say, though, Craig, that ever since the 2002 World Cup, he hasn't really mentally been right. If you recall, he had to leave the tournament in between to address the issue of a burglary that took place at his house.
Yes.
And although I think he came back to the tournament, I just think mentally he wasn't quite right. And when Gareth Southgate didn't pick him for the England squad after that World Cup, I think there should have been some alarm bells ringing there, because at his best, he obviously had pace to burn. He knew how to really do quite well on the wing before, obviously, Bukayo Saka emerged. And I also remember Roy Hodgson giving him his opportunity in the 2014 World Cup, where he was one of our better players, despite our shameful group exit, it had to be said. I just wonder if maybe, mentally he just doesn't feel as though he can handle the pressure of playing at a big club anymore. And maybe it would be better to just accept that although he is 31, maybe his best days are a bit behind him. Has he lost a little bit of pace? Does he have does he need to maybe move into a different position so that he can actually, try to start shooting a little bit more? I don't know. I think he also needs to accept that he can't, if he's really serious about trying to rebuild his career, beggars can't be choosers, and he will either have to drop down to a slightly lower club, or he could, maybe leave the Premier League and drop down a league, or maybe try going abroad. Now, I've got his stats up here on Wikipedia, and it's quite clear to me that he played his best football at Manchester City. If you take a look at his stats there, 225 appearances in the league and 91 goals. Those are numbers, Craig, that any striker would be proud of. And bear in mind, he played as a winger. And of course, his overall stats, he also played several games in different competitions in Europe. So that's 339 appearances and 131 goals. For a winger, a goal every 3 or so games, better than the goal every 3 games. Those are pretty impressive numbers. But when he went to Chelsea, you could see the output slightly dipped a little bit. 19 goals in a total of 81 games, 1 every 4. And I think with that decreasing output, obviously he only scored 6 goals in 28 league appearances, 9 in 38 in 22-23, and then 10 in 43 for 2023 and 24. I think the realization then was that, his best days had started to go a bit behind him. And then when he went to Arsenal, came to join us, that is, it was an absolute disaster in every single way. Only 1 goal scored, and that was in the League Cup. And we really, I think Arteta was just simply the wrong person to go to because. Yes, Raheem did work with Arteta at Manchester City, but it was just a different environment altogether. And when you take a look at how he has declined so sharply, I just wonder if mentally he's not in the right place. And I will also go so far to say that the way he was treated by Enzo Maresca at Chelsea has been absolutely shameful.
Definitely.
Yeah.
To be honest, this bit on Wikipedia, and to be honest, I don't really use Wikipedia that much for this sort of thing, but I'm going to read the actual bit on Wikipedia because it kind of signals the man needs some love. He needs some real love from the next club he goes to. And I know it's probably not going to be an elite club, but somebody needs to pick him up off the ground because how Maresca has treated him is absolutely terrible. But I'll read this little bit. So on the 30th of August 2024, Sterling joined Arsenal on loan for the 24-25 season. Sterling made his first start for the club on the 25th of September and scored the 4th goal in a 5-1 victory over Bolton Wanderers in the 3rd round of the EFL Cup. On the 4th of June 2025, it was announced that he would return to Chelsea, having failed to make a major impact under Mikel Arteta. Upon returning to Stamford Bridge, Sterling was completely exiled from the squad, being forced to train separately and barred from the main club facilities. And then on the 28th of January 2026, Sterling departed Chelsea by mutual agreement. To be perfectly honest, Raheem Sterling he is not a troublemaker. I'm pretty sure you'd agree with that. He's not a troublemaker. He's a dedicated professional. And he needs a bit of love and he needs a bit of picking up. And whoever brings him in next, if they show that, they could well have a very good player on their hands, and a player that's really been, kind of thrown by the wayside by, Enzo Maresca. I agree with you 100%. Enzo Maresca did an absolutely appalling job with Sterling.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when you take a look at what Maresca said, having the gall to compare the situations of both Sterling and Axel Disasi, who has, in fact, joined West Ham from Chelsea on another loan deal, to the struggles of his father. I'm sorry, but that's just below the belt and completely out of line. And it's just as well that Maresca is no longer managing Chelsea. But obviously, Liam Rosenior has done a bit of kindness, I would say, by just being honest with Raheem and telling him that maybe his future would lie elsewhere, and sending him on another loan deal would probably not be the best thing. And so they've let him go by mutual consent. They've given him a more than decent settlement. And the biggest problem is where he goes next. It will be very interesting to see where he goes next because he has these stipulations. He wants to stay in London. And he certainly doesn't fancy leaving the country, although if he can't get a London-based club, then, he will have to consider it. And if not in the Premiership, maybe a drop down to the Championship if there are any London clubs who would have him. I've been speaking with a friend of mine who also has an Arsenal YouTube channel, but normally streams at about 10 p.m. every night. And he says that Fulham could very well be a target and a possible destination, I should say. And Marco Silva obviously has previous for working with players who, were just tossed aside, especially by big clubs like Chelsea and Arsenal. How he was able to get the best of Willian Borges, who did good things at Chelsea, but then was sent on his way. He joined us and absolutely, did not rip up any trees. But during his time at Fulham, he ended up, doing very, very well indeed and was like a player reborn. Maybe Raheem Sterling could be Willian Mark II. And there are some people who are asking Spurs to sign him up. I don't think that will happen. I just don't see Sterling being able to do very much there. I think a smaller club would be perfect for him because he's had his share of the big time. And I think he needs to accept that he just needs to enjoy his football now wherever he goes. And maybe a club out of the glare, as it were, would be perfect for him. So it could very well be that he joins Fulham. Maybe not in this window, but certainly for next season. But you're absolutely right. He needs some love. He needs to be given an arm around the shoulder. Yes, he's earned 80-odd caps for England. He is in his 30s. But still, you cannot just, cut people adrift like that. I'm sorry. That is the worst thing you can do to any player. And hopefully, if things calm down in his private life and he's a lot happier, then you'll see him back to something like his best.
Yes. Fingers crossed. And it just says there on the screen as well about Spurs not being interested now, which is the latest. But I remember when Enzo Maresca made that comparison. Thank you, but not thank you for reminding me of that because it was completely below the belt. And Enzo Maresca did not engage brain before engaging mouth, put nicely, on that occasion. So yeah, I can imagine how A, disheartening, and B, disrespectful Raheem Sterling found that, and it was completely out of order. Other clubs that are meant to be interested are Bayer Leverkusen, Juventus, and Napoli. So they registered an interest over the summer, though no concrete offers were lodged. The representatives, the England winger Raheem Sterling, 31, who left Chelsea by mutual consent earlier this week, are in talks with 7 Champions League level clubs who want to sign him. But there is breaking news this evening. I don't know if you've seen this, Manny, but Raheem Sterling to accept £192,000 a week Everton contract offer. And I'm just going to go through what they've got here. Speaking exclusively to Goodison News, former Everton scout Brian King said, "You can't take away from him. He's been quality in his career. Everton have had a little bit of history bringing in older players like Paul Gascoigne and Tony Cottee." 192,000 a week. Honestly, if I knew if Raheem Sterling wasn't on that sort of money or wouldn't be expecting that sort of money, I would say bring him here. I would have more than happily bought him here, for be it 6 months, be it 6 months, be it till the end of the season. But £192,000 a week, that's a hell of a lot that Everton are shelling out. But if Raheem Sterling somehow gets Everton back in Europe, could that really reignite his career?
I cannot really, for the life of me, see Everton being interested in a guy like Sterling and being willing to offer that sort of money. And obviously, yes, they brought in older players like, as has been mentioned, Gascoigne. But Gascoigne is interesting because, it was Walter Smith, his old boss at Rangers, who actually brought him in And that was after the whole episode at Middlesbrough, which also included his being axed from the England squad for France '98 and the whole kerfuffle that happened. He then went to, obviously, Arizona to seek help for his addiction and other problems. And when Walter Smith did bring him in, obviously, Smith wasn't really enamored with the idea at first, but also, he remembered working with a real quality player during his time at Rangers. Dino Zoff also was complimentary about Gaza during his time at Lazio, although he was, daft as a brush, true to what Bobby Robson, Lord rest his soul, said about him. But although he did well at Everton, Gaza, it was actually David Moyes who replaced Walter Smith and told Gaza that, the club were looking to move him on and his time was going to come to an end. And then he joined Burnley on loan and hoped that he could get them promoted to the Premiership. And that really didn't work out that time. And that was pretty much effectively the end of his top flight career. I don't think he did very much after that. And we all, you only need to take a look at his history to find out how things panned out for him. So I'm not too sure that Sterling would necessarily fit the Everton mould. I don't even know if David Moyes would want that sort of a signing. I just don't see Moyes as the type of person who would be as patient with older players unless they're continuing to perform. And of course, with Moyes, there is also talk about whether or not Seamus Coleman will stick around at Everton for too long. So I don't see much of this happening. And as far as Tony Cottee is concerned, come on, he was never old. He was 23 or thereabouts when he joined Everton and was there for 6 years. He was old when he joined Leicester City and won the League Cup with them, I will give you that. And he did have some very good years at the Foxes before, just drifting slowly out of the game with Birmingham City, Norwich City, Barnet, and then Millwall. But obviously the best years of his career were when he was playing at West Ham and Everton. And of course, he had taken a little trip to Malaysia in between. And I'm sure our good friend Eugene might remember seeing him play for Selangor in the Malaysian League. So, but without digressing, I just don't see Everton being the type of club who'd want to make a play for him. And again, if it means having to relocate his family from London all the way up to Liverpool, I'm not too sure he'd want to do that. And bear in mind, he is, of course, an ex-Red, having begun his career at Liverpool before moving to Manchester City. Even in some romantic sense, it could be a sort of a full circle moment. I'm not necessarily sure that the prospect of playing for Liverpool's biggest rivals would appeal to him, which is why I'm saying a club like Fulham would perhaps be perfect for him if Marco Silva were to take a punt on him. And if Marco Silva could do that with Willian, I don't see any reason why he can't do that with Raheem Sterling.
I think why there's a lot of links with Raheem Sterling and Everton is, of course, the Jack Grealish situation. Jack Grealish, with the injury, is probably going to go back to Manchester City, and Raheem Sterling comes in. But who knows? Who knows? But I've got to be honest. I agree with you. I think Fulham is probably the perfect place for him. That's whether or not they'll pay that sort of money, though. How much money he's on at the moment at Chelsea, or wasn't on at Chelsea. If he was willing to take a wage drop for a significant amount of time, I would have him here. I honestly would. I'd have Raheem Sterling here, Manny. He'd be a great player, I think. See how he gets on in a 6-month window. But he could teach, and he could, his experience could rub off on a lot of the youngsters here. But I think Fulham, like you say, is probably, the most likely destination, from a logical sense. So, yeah, that's a good shout out. I like that.
Thank you. And, that might be the best thing. But again, whether or not that will happen in time before the transfer window ends will remain to be seen. It could very well be that this poor bloke might be left in limbo for the rest of the season and might just have to write it off and then start afresh. It's sad, and
him. I hope not.
I hope it won't happen too. And obviously, I'm glad you mentioned Grealish. Tragic for him. He'll miss the season. No chance now of playing for England in the World Cup or being selected in the squad. Yeah. So I can understand now that you put it why they'd want to try and take a slight punt on Raheem Sterling, because good wingers are kind of hard to come by these days.
Yes, most definitely. Well, I'll tell you what, let's talk about somebody who is probably going to be going to the World Cup in the US, Mexico and Canada. And that is this man. Chelsea are planning on spending 150 million euros, 129 million pounds that equates to, on Real Madrid and England midfielder Jude Bellingham this summer. And I'm not sure what that means in Spanish. But
that's the name of the newspaper, mate.
Oh, okay.
You don't need to bother with that. Don't worry about
it. To be honest, I don't think I'd be able to say that anyway. So yeah, there we are. Let's just quickly go through. Oh, sorry, I do apologise. Jude Bellingham to Chelsea. In all honesty, I can't see it. I cannot see it.
Neither can I. I mean, go ahead, Frank. Go ahead.
I think this one, BBC Sport, I know, reputable source, but are Real Madrid really going to let Jude Bellingham go? He's only a player that's going to get better. I think this one, Carl, is
bullshit.
Had to come out.
Yeah, it had to. And it's funny about Real Madrid. Obviously, there was a huge issue with them sacking Xabi Alonso and bringing Alvaro Arbeloa in as manager. And, regardless of the system that Real Madrid use, I think Arbeloa's gone to a 4-4-2, but Bellingham still is used as more or less a central midfielder now. They're struggling a little bit right now, Real Madrid, and it'll be very hard to see them winning the Spanish La Liga title. And of course, now Real Madrid have dropped into the playoffs after a pretty poor defeat against Benfica, who beat them 4-2 with the goalkeeper Anatoly Trubin scoring that last-minute winner, last-minute goal that actually got Benfica into the playoffs at Marseille's expense. And as ill luck would have it, Benfica and Real Madrid are drawn to face each other in the playoffs for the knockouts. So, it's like deja vu in excelsis. I can't see Bellingham wanting to leave Real Madrid, and I don't think Arbeloa or the next manager of Real Madrid, if Arbeloa doesn't last, will want to lose him either. But one player who will definitely be leaving Real Madrid is Trent Alexander-Arnold, because Arbeloa has told him that, he has no future. Obviously, the the move, of course, which was supposed to be a dream for him, has turned into a literal nightmare. He's been injured, not been able to provide any kind of an outlook, attacking output, I should say. And he's seen, I think, the likes of Federico Valverde slot in at right back ahead of him. And even the veteran Dani Carvajal has been picked in the squad ahead of him, even though he hasn't really been getting too many games. So Trent doesn't have a future, and it has to go down as a failure. At least Michael Owen got to play some minutes and score some goals, but when the chance to come back home came and it presented itself, there was no way Michael could turn it down, a bit homesick. But Trent will look back on his move to Real Madrid as a big disappointment, and I don't see, even with Liverpool's own crises at right back, I certainly don't see them wanting to re-sign him. I know they re-signed Ian Rush after he went to Juventus and stayed there for a year, but Trent Alexander-Arnold is no Ian Rush. But Bellingham, I think you and Kyle have nailed it. I can't see that happening. And as far as Chelsea being able to spend that much money, you just wonder, what are Clear Lake playing at? I see the sense in that, though, because this season, to partner Moises Caicedo, they have alternated between right-backs Malo Gusto and Reece James, mind you, and it hasn't really worked out too badly. And especially when you consider how Rosenia has been very eager to play Enzo Fernandez in the number 10 position when he normally plays in the double pivot. I used to play in the double pivot, I should say. Then maybe there is a place for Jude Bellingham there. But again, unless Chelsea really improve, I don't see this transfer happening. And I don't think Bellingham would want to go to Chelsea if there's hardly a chance of them really making a serious crack at the league, especially not at this stage. Sure, they're a good cup team. We got them in the second leg of the League Cup semi-final. And of course, they won a couple of cups under Maresca. But again, in a nutshell, no, I don't think this is going to happen. No chance. Even Bellingham's hard to say no.
I think Liam Rossini will improve them, but I don't think it'll be, something that will happen quickly. So I cannot see this happening. Why would Bellingham want to go to Chelsea? I was just going to run quickly through the Champions League draw because it was done today, wasn't it? Earlier on.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And Eddie Howe's got a tricky trip to Azerbaijan to deal with.
Yes.
Obviously, if you are unfortunate enough to find yourself in the playoffs, then, you literally have to do everything you can to get away from there. It's like if you remember watching MasterChef, I know John Turode and Greg Wallace are no longer hosting, but I think the format is that every time the chefs have a challenge and, one or two of them just aren't able to rise to the occasion, 3, I should say, they end up going into an elimination challenge. And, the weakest link, as is normally said, would end up being cut adrift. It's the same thing with the playoffs. So, if you weren't able to qualify for the top 8, then that's really only down to you, and you can't have any real complaints about it. Simple as that.
Do you know what? Not even Anne Robinson would have said it as dignified as you did there, Manny. I like that. I like that. The weakness link. You, mate. Goodbye.
Yeah, let's just say, without going too far, I was never a big fan of hers, to be brutally honest.
No,
never the right choice to host Countdown either. Thank God for Colin Murray.
Yeah. Of course, Bodo Glimt is a team that I think potentially could be the surprise package. They've got Inter, so that's going to be a very, very interesting tie. And Olympiacos versus Leverkusen. There's some interesting ties in there, and I think it is tricky. Karabag, going away first leg in, away from home. Newcastle and Eddie, it's not going to be particularly the greatest trip for them. But moving swiftly on, let's go back to the transfers. And Real Madrid, this is an interesting one. This is a surprise one. You nearly saw it just a minute ago because I made an error. But Real Madrid want to sign Manchester United and Portugal fullback Diogo Dalot because of their defensive weaknesses. And that is from the same paper. I can't see this.
I might not be inclined to agree with you. I think this could happen.
Ooh.
Because I did mention that Trent is on his way out.
Yeah.
Danny Carvajal is probably close to retirement. I don't think he'll make the Spain squad for the World Cup either. So that's a hole that has to be plugged. Why not bring him in? I'm not too sure right now. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head who plays at right back for Spain at the moment. And whoever that might be, it'll probably be someone who is happy and settled at his own club. But he's not a bad shout. And I would say that if he were to speak to his fellow Portuguese speaker Casemiro, he could say that might be the team that he'd be the team that would possibly suit him a great deal. Now, I've actually got the Spanish national team up, and they do have a good selection of defenders. Interestingly enough, it's Tottenham's Pedro Porro who is a part of the squad as more of a right back. Mark Cucurella is more or less established as a left back, and then you have someone like Llorente, who I think more or less, Marcos Llorente is also someone who plays at right back, and he's with Atletico Madrid. So I don't think that's a bad shout. I think I could see that happening, especially, as well as Manchester United have been playing now under Michael Carrick. I think there's been a huge amount of damage done to the club by Ruben Amorim, it has to be said. You see a lot of players, under that Portuguese fella, a large number of players simply weren't enjoying playing for the club anymore.
No.
Now some of those players who are still in the squad have got their joy back, their happiness back, the likes of Kobbie Mainoo, Patrick Dorgu, and a few others, Amad Diallo. And there's a part of me that thinks that Diogo Dalot is still now enjoying himself a lot more under Darren Fletcher. But when Manchester United come calling, if they're that impressed with his performances, then United wouldn't necessarily be wise to consider that. It could very well be that they may say he's not for sale, we need to keep him. But then it's Real Madrid. We all know the score.
Yes, exactly. They have got the buying power that nobody else has. If they want somebody, they normally get that person. So it will be interesting to see whether or not Diogo Dalot joins up. And of course, he'll be in the same defence as a certain Dean Howson.
Yes, that's right.
Let's talk about somebody who plays just down the road at the moment, and that is Southampton defender Taylor Harwood-Bellis. Of course, he did get an England cap at one point. He is being eyed to a return to the Premier League, with Everton and Burnley keen on the 24-year-old. And of course, he says there that he had the one cap. Everton are busy, aren't they? David
busy.
Moyes. Yeah, David Moyes is doing quite a lot of business or quite a lot of talking in the final days of the window. I'd be very surprised if he went to Burnley, considering their perilous position. And they are a little bit they are starting to get cut adrift a bit, aren't they, Burnley? They are 10 points away from staying up, and they haven't really had any momentum throughout this season. So I couldn't see him going there. But do you reckon? Oh, hold on a second! Breaking news. West Ham have made a bid for Southampton defender Taylor Harwood-Bellis. Well, that throws a spanner in the works. Maybe David Moyes is going to get gazumped by his former club. Where do you reckon he's going, West Ham or Everton?
A very good question. Well, you've mentioned Burnley, and ironically enough, Harwood-Bellis did actually have a season on loan at Burnley. If we were to take a look at his stats, when he played at Burnley, they were in the Championship, and he wasn't quite able to get them to the top. And if he were to join Burnley now at this stage, in all likelihood, like Wolves, they are now cut adrift, as you've said, and they'll end up back in the Championship. So out of the frying pan into the fire. But as resurgent as West Ham have been of late, they're not exactly out of the woods either.
No.
And going over there would be a very big risk. I like this idea of seeing him go to Everton because there is, he's 24 years old. He does have some years ahead of him. And there might be some issues regarding the age of some of the some of the defenders in that Everton team. I know that Coleman won't last for very long. Tarkowski might also be getting on a little bit. So that might sound like a more than decent buy. And Everton are certainly not in danger of getting relegated, but they aren't exactly able to rise as high as they want to be right now. And if anything, that might actually prove to be the better option for him. I've mentioned Tarkowski. Also played at Burnley for several years, made over 200 appearances in all competitions. And Tarkowski is, in fact, 33. So I think Everton might be the best possible place for him. So if West Ham come calling, and if he has any, ideas, he'd say, "Sorry, no thanks. I'd like to try my luck going to Everton, where, of course, the ex-Bournemouth reserve goalkeeper Mark Travers is." And he might have to wait a little bit longer to get some games with Jordan Pickford in the form that he's in.
Yeah. I could see actually now, Everton being a valid option. They're not that far. They're not that far. They're only 5 points behind Manchester United. Let's be fair. If Everton managed to get into that, those European spots, they will do it by not being very pretty. Is Taylor Hardwood Bellis really a pretty player? Does he play pretty football? No, not really. He is probably the Everton sort of player. This is what West Ham fans were moaning about when Moyes was in charge of them. That the football was a little bit dire. It was a little bit ugly, but it's effective. And it's effective football that could see Everton get it back into Europe. So yeah, I guess it does make sense. It does make sense this with West Ham. I think West Ham will be all right. I think they're starting to turn that corner under Nuno. I think Nottingham Forest really needs to start looking over their shoulder, as do Leeds, and as do Palace if they carry on their same run form. But Everton does make more sense. So, yeah, who knows? He might be leaving St Mary's to go to the Hill Dickinson Stadium. He might get there before we do. Of course, we are up at the Hill Dickinson Stadium in a couple of weeks' time. I think it's Valentine's Day game. If I'm right in thinking, I'm not sure. Not sure. I'll have to check that. But yeah, there we are. Valentine's Day at Everton. Yeah, sounds a treat, that, don't it?
Yeah, well, you know what? Speaking of Valentine's Day, I also know, Craig, that there are going to be quite a few FA Cup ties being played on that day, and in fact,
it might not be Valentine's Day. Don't worry.
It won't be Valentine's Day, mate. I'm sorry.
No,
it'll be another date for sure. And of course, the Aston Villa Newcastle United game, Eddie Howe going over to Birmingham again. That's been selected as the Football Heritage Return to the 90s game. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of wonderful reminders of that. And hopefully that will be televised. I do not want to miss that.
100%. Well, I tell you what, let's talk about a player that has been linked to AFC Bournemouth, but he's also been linked to other clubs. And Cherries have been linked to highly rated midfielder. I'm going to struggle saying this. Jens Hajerto Dahl. Have I said that right?
Kjerto Dahl, like, in Norwegian and in other Scandinavian languages, the J is pronounced yeah. And obviously, you must have read Roald Dahl books as a child.
Yes. Roald Dahl.
As Norwegian as they come.
Kjerto Dahl. Kjerto Dahl? I said that right?
Yep, that's right.
There we are.
Yeah, that's right.
We got there.
Beautiful.
Manny, you are the encyclopedia of
knowledge. I'll try, mate. I'll try.
But, of course, Everton are in for everybody during this window. In a minute, they're going to announce that they're going to be in for Luis Enrique and Ian Sababre as well. But Everton, Liverpool, Rangers, Besiktas, Lazio and Union Berlin are chasing Tromso's 20-year-old Norwegian midfielder. So, yes. And here we are. This is another possible link. Joe Rothwell is expected to leave Ibrox this window to Wrexham or Sheffield United. And let's call him Jens, is said to be the ideal replacement, but Besiktas are leading the race. So, where do you think Kjerto Dahl he's going to go. I don't think.
No, we go ahead, Craig.
I don't think. I think Liverpool. That would be, quite a risk for them. Although they might be preparing for next season, he's probably going to also be expected to be spending quite a bit of time on the bench, but maybe break through. Rangers makes sense. Besiktas makes sense. Lazio, Union Berlin makes sense. Lazio, maybe not so. And Everton again, I think Everton does make a bit of sense, but I would not. Do you know what? This is the sort of signing that I like to see us make, and I can't imagine him being very expensive.
He won't be, but again, there will be some limits as to where he actually might even want to play and where he'd be effective. Signing a young player from Scandinavia and asking him to come all the way to Turkey and play, Turkish clubs, they're quite demanding, you see, and very strict with their own standards, which is why several players have seen their contracts cancelled because their performances weren't up to scratch or what have you. And the Besiktas also in the news for letting Tammy Abraham return to Aston Villa. And he's still 20. He's still got a long way to go in terms of his development. So I wouldn't want to see him go into that environment in Turkey. And even Lazio, he is in fact a central midfielder inspired by the likes of Paul Pogba, Ivan Rakitic and Sergio Busquets, among others. Could they possibly see him as someone who could replace Matteo Guendouzi or anyone else? I would like to see him possibly try his luck in the Premier League. And as you mentioned, Craig, as with the case with Rayan, he won't be expected to be thrown into the first team. He will be, kept on the bench and possibly, given some starts in some cup games maybe, and maybe just blooded as a future option. There are, of course, doubts about whether or not Wataru Endo will remain at Liverpool for quite some time. I think he might want to be on the way out. And Endo is expected to be Japan's captain at the World Cup too. Could very well be that he might enjoy might enjoy the competition for places in the centre of midfield, along with the likes of Ryan Gravenberch and others. Obviously, the likes of Dominic Szoboszlai and Alexis McAllister have shown enough flexibility to be able to alternate between playing in the 10 and also playing in the double pivot. Szoboszlai has also played at right back, but that's a different story. I would sooner see him go to one of the clubs in the UK. It could be Liverpool, it may be Everton. Rangers could also be an option. I think he'd be more adapted to the extreme cold, as it were. And I wouldn't be surprised if he moved to Union Berlin. That would also be a very good place for his development. But I think we'll have to rule out Besiktas and Lazio. I just think that the British clubs might possibly be eager to have a Scandinavian young central midfielder.
Yeah, most definitely. And of course, Joe Rothwell is expected to leave Ibrox this window to Wrexham or Sheffield United, which is interesting. We do have a visitor. Manny. I don't know if you've seen the chat room, but it is Chris. Yeah. How you doing, Chris? Hope you're well. And also, I do like that new logo. That's a splendid logo that he's got there.
Oh, yes.
I do like that. I don't know how he's done it, but, maybe we need to spruce up our one. We've had it quite some time. So, yeah, that is something that I am toying with, is sprucing up our logo. And, of course, Chris has said hi to Manny as well. And
Close up.
he has said about... Jens. He said, I wouldn't sign that guy. He's got no legs. I'm pretty sure he has got legs, Chris.
well, all footballers have legs, it goes without saying. I think maybe he means he just doesn't have the strength or the speed required. Look, sir, he's only 20 years old. I think he's got a lot more time to develop, and he certainly seems to be well rated enough to, be. I mean, he's a Norwegian youth international. He's earned about 25 caps at all age groups. And there's no reason why he can't evolve into a good central midfielder who will end up playing for the senior team not too long from now. But 6'4" as well. Good height. He certainly can, be a dominating presence if he bulks up a little bit. Why not?
Chris has said, look at the picture.
He was pulling our legs.
Look at the picture. I'm trying to...
There are no legs in the picture, so he was pulling our legs.
Oh, do you know what? Oh, we've disappeared. There we are. We're back. Chris, that is a terrible, terrible, terrible joke. And for that, somebody's got something to say to you.
Bullshit.
You've made Chris very angry.
Oh, I tell you what, Chris turns up and what do you call it? Carl Pilkington comes back out. He loves me really. He loves me really. I tell you what, let's get on to the next part. He said, fair enough. Oh, mate, honestly, absolutely love having you on here. You should come on. Get yourself on here. God, crikey. Can you imagine the mayhem if Chris come on here as well?
I shudder.
Should we invite him on?
It's your call, mate. It's your call. I think we might also have to ask another person, maybe another day, especially if we're talking about some Leicester-related news, then definitely he'd be a good person to bring on.
Chris, if you want to join, the link is there. I love balls and pains in the arse as well.
Okay. I think, Craig, it is funny, but I think we might need to move on. I'm not too sure we can take any more of this.
Let's move on. Thanks, Chris. Right, moving swiftly on. And this is an interesting one, Manny. Because Thomas Frank has confirmed that Spurs wanted to sign Antoine Semenyo this window. So Tottenham boss Thomas Frank says the club did everything to bring Antoine Semenyo to Spurs before he joins Manchester City from Bournemouth this month. Frank believes that the failed pursuit of Semenyo shows that the Lewis family, whose trusts have a majority shareholding in Spurs, are very committed to the project, as he defended the club's transfer strategy. And I will go against my rule, hopefully only once. There's no doubt about it. Was very clear that the club wanted to sign Semenyo. They did everything. I think that's a clear signal that the Lewis family is very committed. That's a big signing with finances and all that. So that's the quality of players we're looking for to improve the squad. And if we can't find that, then it's definitely better to take the right decisions. And just going on to Nottingham Forest as well, we'll touch on Semenyo in a second. Nottingham Forest are very active in the market as we approach the deadline. They want to sign a goalkeeper and they are interested in Manchester City's Stefan Ortega as well as Wolves' Jose Sarr, but they are only likely to sign one. Forest are also looking at wingers, strikers, and maybe a central midfielder. Sky Sports News has already reported on their bids for Jean-Philippe Mateta and Yacine Ayeri, as well as their interest in Dwight McNeil. So there we are. Manny, firstly, what do you make of this Thomas Frank wanting Semenyo?
Mr. Pilkington?
Mr. Pilkington is just entering the room and he says,
bullshit.
There we go.
I think he said it perfectly. He said it perfectly because look, if the the club had any intention of signing Antoine, they would have made their motives clear from the very beginning. And let's also not forget, if you remember the interviews that you've done with many Spurs fans for previews, I think they will also tell you that the biggest issue with the club, because let's not forget, although Daniel Levy has since left, it's still more or less, under slight control by ENIC, and or more than slight, I would say. And they don't really have a very big wage bill, so they don't really like paying their players. Never make that mistake again. Yeah. They do not like paying their players very big wages. And obviously when it's Manchester City, it's a different story altogether. You go there, you will literally be rolling in the dosh, as you would say. So, no, there was no way in hell that Spurs were ever going to make that happen. And I think we will move on very swiftly from that. As far as Forest are concerned, yes, it was in the news that they were willing to sign another goalkeeper. And why, I'm not too sure, because in addition to the Belgian international Matt Sells, they also have the Scottish international Angus Gunn. Now, if I were Angus Gunn, I'd be looking at these developments and thinking to myself, you know what? I cannot take it here anymore. I haven't even played a single game for this club. Sells and John Victor, who's now out for the season, have been picked ahead of me. What was the point of me coming over here? My country will be playing in the World Cup. I even see a 43-year-old goalkeeper who was my understudy now effectively usurped me in the pecking order and is now playing for Celtic. What am I doing here? And that's what Angus Gunn would think. As far as getting Jose Sarr is concerned, I cannot see that happening. I wouldn't go so far as to dismiss it like Mr. Pilkington would, but Sarr has also regained his place in goal from Sam Johnston. And I know they have the talented youngster Dan Bentley as third goalkeeper, but I cannot see Rob Edwards wanting to part with the guy who also in recent times has captained the club. Now, and would Jose Sarr be willing to walk away from Wolves and join Forest, where he has little to no guarantee of playing time, especially with an outside chance of regaining his own spot in the Portuguese national team under Bobby Martinez? No way. But Stefan Ortega, very interesting shout. Arsenal fans have very good reason to remember him because it was he who made that fine save from Heung-min Son in that game at the Tottenham Stadium in 23-24, which Manchester City won and which helped them pip us to the title. And it goes without saying that some childish gooners have not forgiven Heung-min Son for that miss. They said it was deliberate. No, it was just a fine save. Think of Emi Martinez in the World Cup final with the other leg. And obviously, ever since Guardiola acquired James Trafford and Gianluigi Donnarumma, especially with Edison Moraes going off to Fenerbahce, Ortega has literally, been frozen out through almost no fault of his own. And if you recall, it would normally be Ortega who'd start for City in some of the big cup games, including several cup finals. So signing Stefan Ortega and having him come in to almost effectively be a second goalkeeper who would compete well with Matt Sells, that would be good. What that would mean for Angus Gunn? Well, if he has any wits about him, he'd bang on Dyche's door and ask for a transfer, go back to Scotland, maybe join Celtic, who are, struggling right now with Kasper Schmeichel and the ex-Aston Villa goalkeeper Sinisalo on the books. I see them signing Stefan Ortega. I think that'll definitely happen. And as far as the wingers are concerned, I think it was mentioned that he was in the market for Dwight McNeil. He's currently on loan at Sevilla right now. I'm not too sure that would necessarily happen, especially with Maupay having recently scored and being a big hit among the fans. Who else are Forest interested in, mate? Can we just have that graphic again,
let's
please?
Just bring it back up.
Yes. Wingers, strikers, and the central midfielder, Jean-Philippe Mateta and Yacine Ayari. I think the Mateta deal is almost done and dusted. I don't know if Brighton will want to let Ayari go. I think Ayari, of course, scored for them against Fulham in the last game week. So that would be a very big risk. And Forest are just going to have to just do a little bit more digging. I don't see Forest necessarily getting relegated, but I cannot see them finishing outside the bottom 5. So it could be 15th, it could be 16th or 17th. That will be where they end up. And it will be very interesting to see who they end up getting before the window shuts. But I believe it will be Stefan Ortega and Philip Mateta who will be walking through the City ground. And they've also gotten rid of Alexander Zinchenko, who was, of course, on our books. He's now, I think, gone to Ajax, and Arsenal will never see him again. To think that Arsenal spent 30 million quid on him and are now letting him go for the princely sum of 1 million. We just don't know how to spend our money, mate. Our net spend is dreadful.
Well, there we are. There we are. That's Nottingham Forest. We'll go on to West Ham in a second, but we do have another joke from our local comedian, or our Leicester comedian. Here we are. What did one DNA say to the other DNA? Do these genes make me look fat?
Well, I mean, if it depends on the genetics, so to speak. If your genetics come from the the people pertaining to that, then sure, that's a good one.
It is a good one, but Chris has got the Christmas crackers out, quite obviously.
Christmas was a month ago.
I know. Keep them coming, Chris. Keep them coming. Oh, yeah. Dear. Oh, and he said, "So you so want me on?" LOL.
I think Craig will have to sort of take a rain check on that, maybe in another stream sometime. I promise you.
There we are. We will get you on at some point, Chris. We'll get you on at some point. Right. I tell you what. Let's talk about West Ham. He carries on. We'll get to that in a second. Nuno, unique Traore can help West Ham's survival bid. So Nuno Espirito Santo believes he can get the best out of Adama Traore, and the unique winger can boost West Ham's bid to beat the drop. Hammers boss Nuno has been reunited with Traore, having managed him at Wolves after rescuing the 30-year-old from a disappointing season at Fulham. I've worked with him for many years and I know him as well, said Nuno. He's unique. There aren't many players with his ability one-on-one or his
pace, I think. Pace.
Pace. Yeah. There we are. Of course, previously of Middlesbrough, he did very, very well there. He was previously, of course, at Forest as well. He is a player that I think will be very, very exciting for West Ham and potentially help them, in that survival bid. Is he going to be enough?
Is he going to be enough? First of all, let me give you my thoughts on what Nuno said about him. Actually, they're not my thoughts. First of all, everything about these statements. Mr. Pilkington.
Ah, here he comes. Carl Pilkington, are you here?
Bullshit.
Oh boy, oh boy. Well, I mean, eventually it will get old, mate, but for now, it's perfectly appropriate.
Yes.
He's a right winger, okay?
Yeah.
We've seen enough of him to know all about his qualities, so to speak, and I am playing a bit fast and loose with the word qualities here. He is very quick. So, and with his, physique, he's literally like a raging bull. So imagine if you're if you're going to the Spanish festival, the Running with the Bulls, and you see someone coming at you. I mean, he's fast and he's quick and he's definitely a real handful. But 10 league goals in 157 appearances for Wolverhampton, 4 league goals in 68 league appearances for Fulham. He runs. He can definitely leave defenses off balance. Can't shoot or score for Toffee.
Yeah. He didn't play
He
for Forest, did he? He played. Sorry, I completely messed that up. Did he play for Nottingham Forest at one point?
No. You got it right the first time. He was with Middlesbrough. He never played with Forest. You said Middlesbrough. I heard you.
Yeah, fair enough.
And
I'll take that.
in between, he even had a loan spell at Barcelona, playing 11 league games. Didn't score over there.
Yeah.
Was also briefly on the books at Aston Villa for a season. Played 11 games. That didn't go well. And of course, that was in the 2016 season when Aston Villa got relegated.
Yes.
Yep. So I think it's fair to say he's also, of course, been capped by Spain, but not very recently, I think. In fact, his last cap was in 2021. So, when you sign him, you're getting a guy who obviously can leave defenses off balance, as I've said, but again, he can't really shoot. Maybe Nuno, having worked with him, will try to integrate him better into the system that he has at West Ham. And maybe, his pace, if he can at least, bulldoze his way through and then, put in the pass. I don't even know if he can cross either. He can be of use, but I think West Ham are at the stage right now where they're trying to get whatever players they can get. They've let James Ward-Prowse go on loan to Burnley, so that's one relegation threatened club sending their player to another one. And I think Ward-Prowse could have a potential role to play under Scott the Bidman Parker. But as far as Traore coming in, I think there will be a limit as to what sort of impact he will have for West Ham, although maybe Nuno can get the best out of him. I just don't really see him doing very much. And, there are many people who write for ESPN saying that, his footballing brain and teamwork skills are up for debate. He can only run the straight line. Yes, he has pace. Yes, he has strength. He can have some composure to find the killer pass while boasting the rapid acceleration and some good close control to shield the ball from defenders. So he did improve a little bit, but again, lightning quick, but lacking composure or an end product. And he does create chances, or he can definitely dribble, but that really is all there is to him. And so if you're a manager, you have to find a way to incorporate him in your system and try and, see if you can get the best out of him. And maybe Nuno can, maybe he'll do something good. I think West Ham do have some tricky games as well that they have to play in order to try and, navigate their rise to safety. So all I can say is good luck to the club and good luck to the player. Both of them are going to need it.
Yep, most definitely, most definitely. And another person that needs some luck is Chris. I think he's disappeared now, so we're all right. He said, "I'm looking at a pair of crackers right now." Talk for yourself, Chris.
Yeah, listen. I think we'll take that as a compliment. We could be crackers in a more positive light. There are some words that have double meanings. Positive and negative, you see.
Exactly. We are crackers, top notch. Cheers, Chris. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. Right, I tell you what, moving swiftly on, let's go through some more transfer activity. And Crystal Palace are still interested in £50 million Strand Larsen. The striker is in tomorrow's squad to face Bournemouth. Manny, I don't know about you, but I don't get the hype about this guy. I spoke to Dave Azzopardi from Talking Wolves. It seems like Wolves fans don't get the hype about this guy. Do you get the hype about this guy?
Well, I mean, he hasn't done too badly in his time here. I mean, maybe his numbers aren't as good as you'd expect. And this season, obviously, if you take a look at his performances in the league, he has been a bit disappointing. But he's 25. You think he might have a few good years in him.
Yeah.
I just think maybe he's in need of a new challenge. He also plays for Norway and is a teammate of the likes of Erling Haaland, among others.
Yeah.
There is a point to what Mr. Azzopardi says. Maybe, I mean, saying that you don't get the hype around him is a little bit harsh. He has scored some goals, but maybe he's just not quite been able to, replicate the form he showed the previous season. And maybe a new challenge will be what he needs. He scored 4 goals in 24 games for Norway since making his debut about 6 years ago. So, yeah, I think Dave might have a bit of a point there, but I think a new challenge could be what, motivates him to do better, and we'll see what happens there.
50 million is a lot of money, and I just don't see him as a 50 million pound player. Don't get me wrong, he is decent. I think he does quite a lot other than putting the ball in the back of the net. His league form has not been particularly very good this season, and has not helped Wolves at all. It's whether or not, if he is going to be able to be interlinked with other players, and those players are going to help improve him, and he's going to be able to create things for those players to put in the back of the net. Unfortunately, and I know, I'm sorry to say this to Wolves fans, he's part of what has been pretty poor side this year.
Exactly.
This season, pretty poor side. I'd like to see him stay up, but I can't see it. But could somebody else get better out of him? I don't think Crystal Palace is really the destination that he wants to go to either. And the main reason being is, the kind of upheaval there. Oliver Glasner leaving the club, so Oliver Glasner might get something out of him and then leave, and then he's back to square one. Do you know what, Manny? I think, we need to ask Carl his opinion on this one. Don't you?
By all means.
Bullshit.
Cheers, Carl. Cheers. I need to find an alternative, don't I? Need to find
Yes,
an
you
alternative.
do, mate. Yes,
I'm
you
gonna have a
do.
look
Sooner the
through
better.
I'm gonna have a look through Jimmy Carr or Ricky Gervais or something. Something else we could get our teeth stuck into. Which is gonna be less of Carl Pilkington on a train. I think that's through China. If you've ever watched Idiot Abroad, I think he's going through China, and he's not enjoying it very much. Moving swiftly on. This is a good bit of business, actually. Fulham have completed the 27 million signing of Oscar Bob from Man City. What do you think of this guy?
Ooh, definitely highly rated. He did some pretty decent things at Manchester City, but sadly injury has sort of limited his involvement with the squad in recent times. And in fact, it was in April of last year that he had a hamstring injury, which meant that he missed quite a lot of matches late in the season, including the FA Cup semi-final, which was against Nottingham Forest, if memory serves me right. And he did rejoin the squad for the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. But obviously, since then, he hasn't quite been able to, do very much. And if you take a look at his current season, he's made 9 appearances so far in the Premiership. And now that his transfer is permanent, he won't receive a winner's medal should City go on to win. He also made 3 appearances, only 3 appearances the season prior to that. That was last season, of course. And then his breakout season probably was in 23-24 when he made 14 appearances in the league. And he ended up winning a league medal.
Yes.
For his contributions. So I think it's only fair that he has this move. It is a permanent transfer, of course, 5.5 years. Also, like Strand Larsen, the Norwegian international, he's earned 16 caps already, scored twice. Definitely more of a midfielder or a winger, and it could very well be that he was signed to replace Traore, or maybe just slot into the midfield on his own. But this is a good move for Fulham, and definitely a sign that they're looking to build their team around much younger players, especially with some of the older players maybe getting on a little bit, and freshening up the squad is never a bad thing.
110%. 110%. And I think this is a great little bit of business from Fulham. Again, going about their business quietly, making the right moves. Marco Silva seems to do a very, very good job there. And last but not least, Jeremy Jackett has made clear to Rennes that he only wants to join Chelsea. And to be honest, this has come from a very, very, very reputable source in chief reporter Kabir Sakol. So what do you make of this? This is he wants to go to Chelsea.
He wants to go to Chelsea, he says. He wants to go. Very interesting. I'd understand if he were playing at Strasbourg, because that was, of course, where Rosenior was, and maybe just a move between, affiliated clubs would make a lot of sense. How old is he? 20 years old. He had one full season with Rennes, playing 28 games. He had last season on loan at Clermont, of course, where he played 23. This season, actually, I stand corrected. He has been a regular part of the Rennes team this season, making 17 appearances. I just don't know if he'll be able to join Chelsea in this transfer window, and it could very well be that he might have to wait until the summer. And he's a defender, so if anything, if Chelsea do decide to make a move for him, it will probably only be at the end of the season, and it could very well be to freshen up that back line, which is a bit shaky at times, although the inconsistency of Robert Sanchez and Philip Jorgensen, their goalkeepers, doesn't necessarily help them. And, Georgi Petrovic, of course, was rated much more highly than them at a time. But when he wasn't guaranteed first-team football, he made the move to the South Coast, and the rest is history.
Yes, yeah. That's an interesting one, to be honest. It really is an interesting one. But, yeah, there we go. That is the transfer rumours. But I tell you what, let's go on to a bit about Bournemouth. And, there has been a couple of comments so far in different mediums with regards to this topic. What other business is likely to happen, and what does AFC Bournemouth need from the men in charge? What sort of resources? I'll give my honest opinion with regards to resources. I think there's resources in place. I think we can probably spend a little bit more. We are, from the sound of things, treading a little bit of a thin line with PSR. But of course, that all changes next season. So we have to be a little bit careful. But I think that Simon Francis and Thiago Pinto have got it completely under control. And I think that there will be a little bit more to spend, but we can't go wild. And we're not going to go wild. I know we've been linked to two other wingers, which is Enrique and Saber. I can't keep saying his name. How do you say it? Sub something. Saber. Can you say it?
You did the video on him, right? Subiabre.
Subiabre. I completely lost my words there, Manny. Thank you for getting me out of a very big hole. I do apologise, Ian, if you are going to join AFC Bournemouth. We will learn your name properly. And, of course, we've been linked to the midfielder as well that we spoke about earlier on. I think we need somebody in defence, considering Marcos Senesi is going to leave. Rather than somebody in midfield, I think somebody in that centre back position is probably the priority now. I think we only need one more player, but who knows? It depends how we're going to go. Are we going to try and bring in the youngster from Tromso? To give him some experience, get him ready for maybe next season. Are we going to bring in Subiabre, to get him ready for next season? But I think the priority for me is that central defensive position. What do you reckon, Manny?
Yeah, central defensive position. Obviously, I did mention that with Senesi leaving, you will need some experience. And, that is why I did mention that a certain former England defender would be a good pick for you. Provided, of course, that United would be willing to let him leave and take up a new challenge. And obviously, Chris will have a lot to say about this person, given the obvious links. But, that is someone who you could look to come in and do a job for you. And I would even suggest maybe trying to bring back an ex-Cherry in the form of either Lloyd Kelly or Tyrone Mings, but maybe that ship has sailed. I don't think that's going to happen. But clearly, a more experienced defender is what you'd need. I think buying another youngster might not be very helpful for you. And you seem to be well stocked in some of the other positions, especially with regard to midfield and attacking wise. Yeah. I think defensively, you will need to strengthen it. It's sad, really, that when you take a look at it, quite a few of the players who've left the club in recent times have been defenders. So, that is something that you're going to have to try and, look at. Just get some experience in someone who won't really want to try to leave you end up leaving you in the lurch, and just get it done. Simple as that.
100%. 100%. Well, a lot of people have been saying that centre-back position. Some people have been saying the left wing. Of course, that would make sense with Luis Enrique or Ian Subiabre. And a couple of people saying that central midfield position, which would make sense with... I'm going to struggle saying his name is Jens Hereso Dahl. I'm going to Kieto Dahl. Yeah. See, Manny, you've got it spot on. What would I do without you, mate? What would I do without you?
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Well, we are going to round up now. And of course, I just want to make everybody aware of this week's show or next week's show, because the transfer window slams shut and we're going to be here for it, Manny, aren't we? At 8 p.m. The transfer deadline day reaction live at 8 p.m. Are we going to be going over the 300 million mark? Actually, it probably is already. Something's probably happened. But do you think there's much more to be done?
There will be a bit more. I mean, obviously, you see that quite a few clubs in the lower half of the Premiership are trying to make some desperate moves to strengthen their squads. Some might happen, some won't. And it's interesting that you speak about Mr. Harwood Bellis. Today actually is his birthday. Just found that out on Instagram. So
there we are.
Scored on his England debut. I'm just taking a look at that reel right now. And there are going to be some activities taking place. A large number of clubs will be very interested to make sure they plug all the holes in their squads. So I think by the time the transfer window ends, it will go up to above 500 million. I promise you.
There we are. Taylor Harwood Bellis, happy birthday. You can reward yourself by leaving Southampton. There we are. That's a birthday treat for you.
Maybe take a short trip across the south coast to join Bournemouth. That would be nice.
Exactly. To be honest, it wouldn't be a bad signing, in my honest opinion. Maybe, just maybe. You never know. But Manny, I think that's all we've got time for, isn't it? Another packed show. I've stumbled over some names tonight again. Chris has entertained us with a lot of comedy. I love doing these shows. You're going to be back, aren't you, for Monday night show?
Absolutely, wouldn't miss it for the world.
Definitely.
Monday night, you said. I will let you know for sure.
Yes. Well, do hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. Until the next one, everyone, thank you for joining us, and we shall see you very, very, very soon. Up the Cherries, up the Gunners as well. We'll see you in the next one.
Definitely, thank you, for sure.
TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
I should be like you, Mel.